Hello, my darling Pop-Tarts. Welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me for Vibing with the Emperor. Yes, today we're going to vibe with the big bad daddy of tarot.
Emperor! We come for you!
And I could not be more thrilled, I could not be more excited because, darlings, I have had a serious journey with this particular card, and I know that it can be a problematic card for a great many people. I know lots of people have not been vibing with the Emperor for some time, okay? And I would like to give him his flowers. I would like to give him his due. I would like to paint a little bit more of a nuanced picture for you. And so we're going to go into my initial thoughts, light, shadow, and conclusion, as we do with all of the Vibing with videos. If you want to see the others, I started with the full, obviously, very good place to start. And I will leave them all for you in a playlist down below, okay? So you can get acquainted with what I've been saying about tarot so far. But today, we are doing the Emperor, and this is the Emperor from the Rider-Waite-Smith. Yes, the quintessential image of the man who causes so much trouble for so many card singers. If you just imagine like Bad Reputation by Taylor Swift, is that what the name of the song is? Bad Reputation? Just imagine that playing here. He does have a little bit of a difficult reputation, the Emperor, but we're gonna pull it up out of the mud today without overlooking the many reasons why he has that difficult reputation, because in many ways he's earned it, but I just feel like not enough is said about his fabulous qualities. So we're going to go for the whole spectrum is what I try and do here with Vibing With. I want to go from the light all the way through shadow in the Jungian sense, okay? So we're going to look at what's conscious, what's positive, what's delightful, what we normally love about the Emperor. And then we're going to go into the murky, dangerous, dark, difficult side. And we're going to see if we can't bring it all together into somewhat of a reasonable portrait of this figure in the tarot deck, okay? So this video is sponsored by me. All of the Vibing With videos are sponsored by yours truly. I am a professional card slinger myself, and I have been for many, many moons now. If you would like to have a one-on-one reading with me, whether you've never had a reading with me before or whether you're coming back after many happy readings, I would like to invite you to click over to my online store. You will find an entire plethora of readings there for you. I have a lot of different stuff. I do offer custom designs, but I do offer a lot of different other things as well. You can check out all kinds of different reading designs, as well as different options for mentoring and some other interesting bits and pieces that you can get your hands on as well. I also offer live workshops from time to time. So depending on when you're clicking on this video, you might see some really interesting stuff in the live workshop area of things as well. So I've always got stuff cooking over there at Planet Maddox. So go over there and give it a look. Okay. So let's talk a little bit initially about the Emperor, okay? The Emperor is usually, like I said in the last video with the Empress is usually considered to be the sort of quintessential mother archetype in tarot. The Emperor, by contrast, is usually the quintessential father figure in tarot. Yes, the Empress and the Emperor kind of work together. And the reason I'm wearing a flower in my hair today, alongside this very camp, gorgeous shirt that I'm wearing, is because although I want to show the business aspect of the Emperor, I want to show that the Emperor is definitely here to do something, to lead something, to make things happen. He's also very much in step with the Empress in that he also wants to see things grow and flourish. But the way that he goes about making things grow and flourish is a little different to the energy that the Empress brings. But essentially, they both are interested in surging forward, growth, seeing things happen. They want that success. They want that feeling of things being expansive and things coming into being. The way that they go about it is different. And the Emperor is a card that a lot of card slingers have difficulty with because he seems to be so representative of that more strict, rigid, domineering, patriarchal style of doing things. And of course, a lot of people, and especially a lot of people that read tarot cards, we're trying to get away from that bullshit, okay? We don't like that. So the Emperor, you know, seems to bring up a lot of fears in people, a lot of resentments. When the Emperor turns up, it's very much a feeling of a domineering force has come into the reading, and he's demanding attention and demanding that we place our focus on what he wants to do and how he wants us to do it. And as you can imagine, tarot readers, we're not usually the type to enjoy that kind of shit. Okay, so that's why there's sometimes some difficulty when the Emperor comes up. And the Emperor can be seen as cold and stern and all of that. So we're going to go into that in the shadow area. The thing I love about the Emperor is that the Emperor is really serious about what he's doing. He means it. He has honor and loyalty when he's doing it. And it's going to get done because the emperor's in charge, baby. So there is all of that excitement too. So we're going to go into both aspects of it. But my relationship with the emperor has really grown over the last 15 years. I really would say that I used to have a lot more hang-ups about the emperor, a lot more traumal feelings and difficult fractious emotions when the emperor came up, as opposed to now where I feel a lot more sorted in terms of what the emperor means, what he means to me, and the energy that this figure can bring to a reading. So I'm really, really thrilled particularly to be able to give these insights to you. Let's do it, baby. Let's vibe with the emperor today. I'm thrilled about this. Let's get into it. The emperor is a leader. That is first and foremost one of the things I will say. The emperor leads. He leads from the front. He charges from the front. He's very brave in having to do that. He's very steadfast in having to do that. He really is someone that is kind of running things, you know. He has the vision, but he also executes the vision. He's not just about explaining his philosophy. The emperor is going to embody his philosophy. He's going to be someone that really means it and really does what he says he's going to do. And therefore, alongside that leadership quality, he has to have a few things that make him into a good leader. You know, he has to be, for example, someone that has integrity. He has to be someone that has discipline. He has to be someone who really keeps to his word. And so all of those things are very true about the emperor, and that can be considered some of the most positive stuff. The emperor is the part of us inside that is going to say something, we're going to mean it, and we're going to do it. We're going to take it into action. Someone with really good, clear leadership qualities has to be responsible. They've got to be responsible for what they said they were going to do, but they've also got to be responsible for the project in more of a whole sense, you know, in terms of the complete vision and the complete execution. There has to be a sense of like, yeah, I'm going to claim responsibility for this. I'm going to say that I can do this thing. And in doing that, there has to be like an honorability to that. There's got to be an honesty to that. There's got to be a realism to that. And I think when we look at the emperor in the more positive light, when we look at the conscious aspects of the emperor, there is that honorability and that honesty, that the emperor is turning up and saying, I give of myself to this, I commit to this, I'm going to see it through, and this is the way that I'm going to do it. Therefore, the emperor is not really very bells and whistles about things. When the emperor is operating consciously, they're the part of us that wants to be honest about what we can manage. We want to set realistic expectations for what we're going to do. So we want to manage people's expectations by being very honest about what we can do and the timeline in which we're going to get it done. We want to be honest with ourselves. We want to be honest with our colleagues, with our friends, with our family members, whatever it might be. We want to be real in our communities so we can get something over a finish line. So when the emperor is operating consciously, it's the part of us that really is going to do what we say and say what we mean without too much self-aggrandizing and without too much fanfare and flowers and, you know, like, I don't know, circus shit, without too much sparkle on it. We're just going to do it. We're just going to hunker down. And we're going to mean it, and we're going to demonstrate our abilities, and our abilities will come across through what we achieve, not through what we blabbermouth about, and not through how we portray ourselves, but how we really actually do it, stand on fucking business, essentially. That's what the emperor is here to do.
How will the world speak my name in years to come? Will I be known as the philosopher, the warrior, the tyrant? Or will I be the emperor who gave Rome back her true self?
There is a lot of authority in the emperor. The emperor is definitely an authority figure. But if you think about how that would come across consciously or positively or helpfully, it would be in terms of taking responsibility for the collective. It would be about really sort of putting your pedal to the metal, really engaging your abilities to be able to bring something over the finish line. And so the sense of your own authority, the sense of your own expertise, the sense of your own strength to be able to mete something out can actually be a really positive thing if it's done for the good of all, and if it's done in order to protect or in order to serve. And the emperor can do both of those things really well. So it's really important that we don't take the idea of authority immediately to a tyrannical, despotic, nasty place. There is that aspect to the emperor, I think, in the shadow more, but I think there can also be positive forms of authority and positive forms of self-commitment, really putting yourself up for whatever it is that needs doing, and saying, I can take control of this area of things. You know, I can delegate if need be. I can organize if need be. Both of those things are qualities that the Emperor has in abundance. I'm going to encourage you to do a little bit what I encourage you to do in the last card with the Empress, okay? With the Empress, I asked you to think a little bit about what the archetypally good mother is like, right? The good mother, capital G, capital M, the archetype of the good mother. I'm not talking about your particular mother or anyone else's particular mother, okay? We're talking archetypes here. Now I want to ask you to do the same thing with the Emperor. Think about what is the archetype of the good father. And very often we're thinking about things like protection. We're thinking about things like leadership of the unit, right? And in the Dust to Onyx Tarot, which is one of my favorite tarot decks of all time, the Emperor is renamed the Chief. And I think that's actually a really good way of alternatively seeing the Emperor. It's as like the chieftain of a group, of a collective. And so taking responsibility for that, having a vision for the collective movement of that group, really the buck stops with the Emperor. So the Emperor, or the chieftain, if you will, is someone who's saying, the buck stops with me. I can take this on. I will handle it. I will do what needs to be done. And I will do it with my watchful eye over everybody who might be physically weaker than me, or unable to do some of the things I can do, or might be fearful in a way that I'm not fearful. I'm going to stand up and say that I will take responsibility for that. And if we look at the protectiveness of the Emperor, that's very often where that paternal love or that parental kind of love comes from. And it's not just in relationships, it's in relation to projects, it's in relation to social justice, it's in relation to all kinds of things like that. I'm not naturally a very Emperor-oriented person, I don't think, but I have been thankful for the presence of a good Emperor in my life in some regard. And it's got nothing to do with gender. Everyone has a good Emperor. Everyone has a quintessentially, archetypally good father inside of them. We have to think of it like that. It's not split down into like, oh, you know, I identify more femme or feminine or as a woman, so I must be on the Empress side. Oh, I'm a man, so I must be on the Emperor side. No, you are invested with an Emperor and an Empress. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about archetypes, and archetypes fly far and away beyond gender if we're doing them right. Okay, so the Emperor is that part of you that is willing to step up for the collective. The Emperor is that part of you that's willing to take on some hard work, to chow down on some responsibility, to honor that feeling of protectiveness and responsibility that you feel for what it is that you're doing, for the relationships that you're in, for the path that you want your life to take. So the Emperor is quite serious. There's a seriousness to the Emperor that doesn't have to be linked to tyranny or bossiness or rigidity, but can actually just be about wanting to be honourable. I work with the Norse god Tyr, and Tyr is very much the god of oaths and loyalty, honourability, meaning what the fuck you say, being brave, doing the hard thing because it's that hard thing that needs to be done. And knowing that when you're doing that, you're in your fullness, you're in your honesty while you're doing that. I just served myself up some Yogi tea before I started this video. The blend is Heartwarming by Yogi. And if I read the little thing on here, I thought it was really interesting. I was like, oh, I wonder if the little, you know, sort of tab will say something that corresponds with the Emperor. And I think actually it does. The tab says, greatness is found in the unity of self. Greatness is found in the unity of self. Now, the Emperor is definitely seeking greatness, but when the Emperor is operating consciously, it's found in the fact that he knows what he means and what he thinks and what he is sure needs to take place, and he's honouring that. He's being open about that. He's claiming that. He's claiming that not only as his right to go after, but as his responsibility to give to others, to serve in that way, in the way that he knows he can serve. So it's honourable, it's honest, it's brave. And a big part of the Emperor is that bravery. It's that feeling that the Emperor has set aside his personal ego in order to serve the collective or show up in the way that he knows that's the role that he can play. That's the thing that he can do. And damn it, he's going to bring that to the table. A good Emperor is firm but fair. I think that's definitely something that I would say about the emperor archetype. A good emperor is firm but fair. They know when to elicit sympathy or empathy or understanding or a measured response. And they know when it's time for that more disciplined, more serious, more honest, more down to the wire kind of response. And it will be in relation to the situation that's playing out, which means that the emperor actually has their own kind of intuition. Your inner emperor, the part of you that wants to be responsible, honorable, serious, disciplined, drive things forward, get things done, and take on your role, claim your position in that fight. That part of you also knows when it's time to be a bit more relenting, when it's time to tactically and in a measured way sort of step back from something or hold more space to listen. And then when it is your time to say, look, this is how it's going to get done. This is the way I want it. These are my boundaries. This is what I'm trying to achieve. And so there is, yes, definitely a spectrum in the way that the emperor communicates. And I think a good emperor, a good leader, a good chieftain is someone who knows whereabouts on that spectrum they need to be in relation to the situation. So yes, the emperor definitely wants to get something done. The emperor is serious, and the emperor has come here to do something, not just to stand around talking about it, not to have like fruity little notions about it, but to fucking do it. And so, yes, there is definitely that seriousness, but there's also a sense of like, you know, leaning into the energies of something, figuring out what are the needs of the other people that I'm doing this with? What are my needs? How can I make sure I sustain myself and keep being able to give my part in this? And as a result of focusing on those needs and those energies, a good emperor will be able to discern, and that's a big part of the emperor, discernment. A good emperor will be able to discern what the response is going to be. And if the emperor is operating consciously, the response will be measured. It will be sensible. It will be with perspective. It will be in keeping with what the situation is. So there is a wisdom there. And that brings it back to the kind of big daddy of tarot idea, right? That the emperor has a wisdom. The emperor has a way of doing things that makes other people want to follow him, that makes people think that maybe when he speaks up, he's got something worthwhile listening to, because he's going to use his wisdom in the service of the collective, in the service of the project, in the service of his own journey. And that wisdom is going to be something that is not overtly emotional or all over the place or unhinged or unstable. When the emperor is operating consciously, his response to something is going to be in keeping with the result that he wants to see. And that's what he's going to be thinking about. That's where his priority lies. The emperor very often comes up in readings when we're being called to figure out what our part is in something. What is the role that we are being called to play? And are we being called to play it on a more serious level? Are we being called to take ownership of our power instead of standing on the sidelines or looking at the floor or kind of hoping that somebody else will come along and save the day? The emperor is the part of ourselves that's like, I can do that. I volunteer for that. I know something about this and I'm going to apply that strength and that ability. You know, so we're really stepping forward into being responsible, into taking on some measure of the weight of something. And so the Emperor is a very adult card, you know, in many ways. I think that's one of the reasons as well that I've been previously a bit intimidated by the Emperor, is because it was hard for me to lock into that part of me that was ready to step forward. In many different ways in my life, I felt like that. And the Emperor is that part of me that's like, I'll do it. I can. I'll commit to that. Yeah, I will commit to that. So it's that part of you that's like, oh my God, I'm gonna say that I'm gonna do something and I'm actually gonna do it, you know? It's that responsibility and that sense of like, I honorably state that that will be my intention. I will be bringing this to the potluck. Yes, I will cook that. I will sort that out. I will meet that deadline. Give me that project. I can handle it. So there is an incredible energy in the Emperor that is to do with meaning what you say and doing what you said you were going to do. So yes, it is quite adult. It's quite serious. It's quite, you know, it's like, wow, things are getting real here, you know, and that's very much a part of the Emperor's energy. A conscious Emperor is striving. A conscious Emperor is hardworking. And a conscious Emperor knows that they have to earn trust. They have to earn respect. They know that if they make the right decisions and do things the right way, they will be tasked with more responsibility in a way that maybe gives them more material abundance or gives them more status in a group. So yes, there is that sense of wanting to pursue glory, but it's in the interest of expansiveness. And a good emperor is the part of us inside that is like, I'm going to show what I can do. I'm going to do something here. Something needs to be done and I'm the one that's going to do it. I'm going to take charge of that. I'm going to prove it to myself and I'm going to give of myself in that way, in that very kind of like real, I'm trying to think of another word for responsible. I can't think of a word for responsible right now. Why is my inner thesaurus on lock? But anyway, basically, yeah, it's that part of you that's like, fuck yeah, this is for real right now. I'm for real right now. I'm not just someone that is ineffectual. I am effectual. And that's what I'm going to be in this scenario. For me, the emperor inside myself is the part of myself that isn't fearful of accomplishment. Or maybe I am fearful of accomplishment, but not enough to fucking stop me, baby. Not enough to stop me. Okay, darlings, let's go into the shadow area. Let's go into the more difficult, challenging aspects of this card, okay? So first of all, the emperor can often represent burden, the burden of responsibility, too much responsibility, associating responsibility and productivity and getting results and being the one in charge with your whole personality, right? With just the thing that people value you for, the thing that you think you should always be. So not taking a load off, not letting your hair down, not really feeling able to enjoy and luxuriate in the things that you have built. It's really that, if you imagine the chieftain that is letting everybody else sort of have a party and enjoy themselves while they're patrolling and organising and making sure everything's protected and making sure the boundaries are firm and looking out for enemy groups and all this kind of thing, right? It's really that sense of like always having one eye open, sleeping with one eye open, just really committing to so much that the sense of burden is completely always present, That can definitely be an issue for the emperor. So the emperor is someone that is almost too overly identified with the responsibilities that they've taken on, with the things they said they were going to do. The emperor can be a workaholic for this reason. The emperor can often turn up when we have just really overcommitted or we've really pushed ourselves to the max. The emperor can turn up in that kind of situation. The emperor can turn up when we only associate ourselves with what we can be for our family or who we can be in our friendship group in terms of what we can provide. The overt association with provision can be very much a shadow of the emperor. So it can be the part of you that feels like you just always have to be providing and producing and being in your role. And your role is going to be as, yes, someone that's helping, someone that's striving, someone that's producing the goods, and never really someone who's just like letting their hair down and letting themselves party a little bit, letting themselves just have other aspects to their nature, exploring other parts of their beingness. An emperor in shadow is someone who's too stuck into fight mode or build mode, or daddy mode, essentially. And so that part of you that struggles to just let go and be in other parts of your nature and maybe, I don't know, it sounds crazy to say, but have some fun. That part of you might be very identified with the emperor, and that might be a way for you to really understand some of the shadow aspect. Another big shadow aspect, and I think this is the one that is really the kicker for a lot of people that read tarot, the bit that they get stuck with, and it's understandable, and I've been there myself, is tyranny. Just like straight up, rigid, my way or the highway, just despotic rule.
Your work here is finished, my friend. Go out to the command ship and await my orders.
Yes, my master.
If you think of the emperor as a leader, and the leader is one with wisdom and one with like foresight and insight and, that kind of thing, the positive leader, what's the negative of that? What's the other side of that coin? It's an unreasonable leader. It's a leader that never listens to anyone else's input. It's a leader that thinks that they're the best person to fill every single role, and they don't appreciate that other people have expertise and other people might want to be involved, It's a leader that wants to take all the glory for themselves, that doesn't give other people credit. These parts of ourselves and these parts of others are very present sometimes when the emperor comes up, depending on the position that the emperor is in and the reading that the emperor is in. The Emperor can very much represent someone who is just super rigid in their outlook and always thinks that they are right. They don't really like apologizing. They don't really like looking at something from a different angle. They don't really like admitting that they might not be the best person for every single job. So it's hard for them really to give other people the glory, and it's hard for them to see other points of view. They can be incredibly rigid in that way. The Emperor can be bossiness. The Emperor can be fastidiousness. You know, the Emperor can be that part of us that is like demanding, domineering, that part of the human spirit. Another shadow of the Emperor is being just unfeeling, just not accepting that people's emotions have anything to do with the way something ought to play out. So the Emperor can represent a coldness in the personality of the human being, a sense that like, I don't care what you feel. I don't care what's going on with you. I don't care about the circumstances of what's happening. The greater goal is always the most important thing. The thing we're striving for is the thing that takes center stage, and the individual issues of people, and even my own individual issues, sometimes won't get a look in because I've got my eye on something, like I'm absolutely tuned in to this thing that needs to happen. And of course that can have very disastrous consequences. So there is that sense that the Emperor is on a mission, come hell or high water, by any means, and not really looking at the way that that might play out for different people in the situation, or even for himself. The Emperor can be very stubborn. The Emperor thinks he knows best. You know, these are definitely big shadows of the Emperor, my darlings. You know, that idea that like, I have the vision, it's the best vision, there can be no better vision than mine of what needs to happen and how it needs to happen. And of course, in keeping with that stubbornness and with that singularity of vision, that single-mindedness, right, that opinionated vibe that the Emperor can give off, is that sense that because the Emperor feels their opinion is right and righteous and, you know, the most correct one, that the Emperor needs to be in charge of it. The Emperor can't let go of the reins. And so, again, we have that despotic energy, that energy of just like forcing people and talking over people, interrupting people, just being very self-assured to the point of obnoxious. Sorry, Emperor, I love you so much, but that is your shadow, okay? That is the shadow of you. One of the big shadow areas of the Emperor is the desire to uphold tradition, to uphold the rules, to uphold the structure. And in this way, he has something in keeping with the shadows of our friend the Hierophant that we're going to come on to next, okay? So the Emperor is really about like, you know, this is the way it's been taught, this is the way it was handed down to me, or this is the way that I see it politically or societally or in relationships or in regards to art or in regards to intimacy or anything, in regards to parenthood. This is the way that it's supposed to be done. Supposed to be done. So the Emperor can be quite unquestioning. In the shadow of the Emperor is the shadow of the human being who is not questioning those systems that have been upheld for a long time, those rules that we made that seem to be, you know, canon, that seem to be unquestionable. Like, we're not allowed to question them. We're not allowed to do anything different. We're not allowed to dance different steps or go outside the box or question how else something could be. The Emperor in shadow is that part of the human spirit that is like, well, this is the way it's always been done and this is the way it always should be done. And I'm just going to be super rigid and totally firm about that. And there's no way that any other option for change or evolution or exploration of differences can come into the scenario. Like, I'm literally going to guard against that. I'm going to absolutely say no to that. And of course, that rigidity and that lack of acceptance can lead to breakdowns in connections. It can lead to breakdowns in one's own life, because they're not being able to see how things need to play out differently and how old systems and old ways of doing things sometimes need to be toppled. We need that in society, and we need that in terms of our own way of doing things, our own way of handling things, the rules that we've set for ourselves and that we then risk imposing upon other people. And the Emperor can be an imposer of his way of doing things upon other people. So when that comes up in a reading, it can be about the way that you are insisting and the way that you are hanging on to an old cycle or an old, previously probably beloved set of rules, And it can also look at how others are doing that to you. And it can also be about how that is happening societally and the damage and the danger and the sadness and the disenfranchisement that comes from that. The Emperor is an action man. There's no question about it. He's a man of action. But an action man should always be looking at and updating his own terms of service, okay? There's no point in someone coming along and being like, I know the right way and I know how to help and I know how it should be done and I know how it can be better. If we're not constantly looking at and reassessing, what have I been taught about how things would look better? Should I question that belief? What is it about that belief that makes me so sort of steadfast in it? And is it possible that that's not necessary for this situation? Is it possible that that way of thinking was never necessary at all? And maybe my father's 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 father taught it a bit dodgily and it needs to be looked at again. You know, so it's that lack of ability, that lack of willingness to question what one is attempting to enforce or construct. That is one of the biggest shadows of the Emperor. And it's a downfall for us as individuals. It's a downfall when we look at the way other people are behaving with us. It's a downfall in geopolitics, frankly. It's a huge fucking downfall for humankind. And it can be very much rooted archetypally in tarot terms in the Emperor in shadow. It's all there in the Emperor in shadow. So that's another reason it's so difficult for people, because it can represent systems that have been long upheld, that have been enforced with an iron fist, that need to be fucking overthrown. And in the end, sometimes it's only the Emperor that can't see that, and everybody else is like, get with the program, baby. I know this is really important to you, and I know you think it means something, but it doesn't mean anything anymore. We're getting rid of it. So you can either come with us or you can make like a dinosaur. It's up to you, you know? So there has to be that flexibility and that willingness and that humble nature in the Emperor. Otherwise, they go into shadow. And when they go into shadow, it can be disastrous. The Emperor can often be a figure of power. You know, it's our own power, our own willingness and daring, but it's the power of others as well. It's their power. And sometimes it can therefore be about power struggles. It can be about that difficulty that we have to voice our true feelings and to stand our ground with an Emperor energy in our midst. If we've got an Emperor energy in our midst and it's gone into shadow, it's really difficult to stand up to that kind of energy and say, no, actually, I will go and build my own empire if necessary, but I'm not dealing with this shit anymore. You can't talk to me like that anymore. And sometimes the Emperor has to do some mirror work and do that within themselves. They have to look at themselves and be like, why am I making myself be like this? Why is this my stance? And would it be okay? Would it cause less destruction? Would it foster more empathy and community if that wasn't my fucking stance anymore? So it's the ability to change one's mind, right? The Emperor in shadow holds grudges. The Emperor in shadow will just never call you again if you don't do things the way that they have said is the right way. And that's that bad daddy energy. That is that bad daddy energy. And I know I've got a bad daddy just like that. Okay. He's alive and well, and he just doesn't want to fucking speak to me anymore. And I don't want to speak to him either, because he's Emperor in shadow. Okay. He is the Darth Vader of my life. Okay. So yeah, there is that sense. There is that issue. And that's very much prevalent in the Emperor in shadow. It can be very difficult to talk to someone who's in their shadow Emperor energy. It can be very difficult for people to talk to you when you're in your shadow Emperor energy. And it causes ripples of consternation and difficulty going outwards. So yes, the shadow of the Emperor is a tasty bloody thing. It's a saucy boy, the shadow Emperor energy. It really is. It's difficult. It's difficult. The Emperor has got to tune in to the emotions, to the empathy, to the sense of the other in order to make good decisions. The Emperor might be very, very skilled. The Emperor might mean very, very well. The Emperor might have some really great strengths. But if they're trying to overpower everybody with them, if they're trying to insist that nobody else knows anything or can advocate for themselves, then there's going to be trouble, you know. And sometimes the Emperor's ego is hurt when someone says to them, I think it should be a different way. And I'm basing this on my own wisdom, because yes, P.S., I have some wisdom too. And this is the wisdom I'm bringing to the table. The Emperor in shadow will be like, I'll break the table over my knee and walk out. I don't want to hear about your wisdom. It's not about your wisdom. This is my way or the highway. And that's an issue. You know, it's always going to hurt more for the Emperor in the long run to be like that. than it is going to hurt for the people that are under the Emperor's tyranny. Well, Pop-Tarts, this has been Vibing with the Emperor. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got something from this resource. As I said, I've been on a really interesting journey myself with the Emperor. It definitely had within it a lot of the difficulties around the shadow side, the shadow nature of this card. I had that for many years on and off with the Emperor. Sometimes, you know what, I couldn't even look at him. This is before I went pro, okay? Because by the time you go pro, you shouldn't really feel like that about cards. You're allowed to have your nuanced, dynamic relationships with cards that move and flow and change with what's going on in your life. But you shouldn't really, if you're a professional tarot reader, have cards that you loathe. So by the time I went pro, it was okay. But before that, yeah, I had my issues with the Emperor. I had my tussles and wrestles with the Emperor, because the Emperor is the part of me that is stubborn and doesn't want to apologize and thinks I know right. And the Emperor is also the very worst parts of the human beings that have done that to me. You know, and reaching out from that, the Emperor is some of the very worst parts about the nature of what goes on in the world and the systems of power that exist that I have personally sought in my life as an activist to fucking overthrow. So, yeah, there's a lot to unpack with the Emperor, but I came to love the Emperor by starting my own business, going full time with my business, getting a public platform, publishing my first book, now on the verge of publishing my second book. Yes, my darlings, it comes out this October. I'll leave the pre-order links down below. All of that, right? I came to my Emperor energy through realizing, like, wow, this is about taking responsibility, and this is about meaning what I say, and this is about providing something that is of service, and this is about having integrity. This is about my life and what I want to do with my life and how that's going to mean something and how I'm going to really do it. The shadows of the Emperor were my stubbornness, my anger problem, my feeling of self-righteousness, you know, all of that stuff I dealt with through my meditation practice for many years and through therapy and all the rest of it. My addiction to rage, you know, that feeling of just like anyone obstructing my course with someone that wasn't on my side, that black and white thinking, you know? So yeah, I mean, it's been a really interesting journey with the Emperor. I'd love to know down below, what has been your journey with this incredible figure in tarot? Are you still having problems? Do you have, hopefully, fingers crossed, slightly less problems with this card since watching this resource? And is there anything else you want to bring to the table? This is not a full breakdown of every single meaning. You're quite welcome to go ahead and give your interpretations and give things that you think are useful and worth talking about in the comments down below, okay? It's always Card Slinger chat time in the comments underneath the Vibing With series. So go ahead, fill your boots, do the thing. Much love. Keep card slinging, my darlings. Stay safe and blessed be. Mwah.
To waste my